The rain had stopped just before sunrise, leaving the city washed clean but heavy with silence, the kind of silence that follows trouble. Arav Malik stood on the bus stop curb with damp shoes, one hand gripping his worn backpack and the other holding his phone like it might slip away if he loosened his fingers. His heart was still racing from the night before, replaying the image of his boss slumped in the back seat of his old car, mascara streaked, breath sharp with alcohol, reputation hanging by a thread. One wrong decision, one moment of selfishness, and everything could have gone wrong. Instead, Arav had chosen kindness when it would have been easier to walk away. Before the story pulls you deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet heroes who do the right thing even when no one is watching, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel Kindness Touch. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Arav was 34, a single father to a 7-year-old boy named Ryan, and every morning began the same way. He woke before daylight, packed a simple lunch, tied Ryan's school tie with careful fingers, and whispered encouragements while the kettle hissed in the background. His life was built on routines because routines kept chaos away. Since his wife passed 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, chaos was something he feared deeply. He worked as a facilities supervisor in a mid-sized corporate building downtown, a job that paid just enough to keep the lights on and allowed him to be home before Ryan slept. His boss, Mira Halvorson, was the opposite of routine. She was sharp, successful, impeccably dressed, and carried her authority like armor. People admired her from a distance, but rarely knew her beyond the glass walls of her corner office. The night before had not been routine at all. Arav had stayed late fixing a malfunctioning access system when he noticed Mira in the parking garage, struggling with her keys, her heels clicking unevenly on concrete. It was still daylight fading into evening, the kind of hour where mistakes are made quietly. Arav had seen enough to know what trouble looked like. She was clearly intoxicated, and her car was already unlocked. For a brief, dangerous moment, he considered turning away. He was tired, his son was waiting at a neighbor's place, and Mira had never been particularly kind to him. She barely knew his name most days. But something stronger than resentment stopped him. Maybe it was the memory of his wife's last night in the hospital, when strangers had shown him compassion without obligation. Maybe it was simply the man he had promised himself to be for his son. He intervened calmly, took the keys, called a cab, and drove Mira home in his own rattling car because she insisted she didn't trust anyone else. He made sure she was inside safely, left her with water and a note reminding her to rest, and walked away without telling a soul. He did not record it, did not expect gratitude, and certainly did not imagine it would change anything. By the time he reached home, the sky was dark, his arms ached, and guilt tugged at him for being late to pick up Rayan. Life moved on, or so he thought. The next morning, sunlight flooded the office lobby through tall glass panels. Arav arrived early, as usual, blending into the quiet hum of cleaning crews and the smell of fresh coffee. He expected nothing out of the ordinary. Maybe even a colder demeanor from Mira. She felt embarrassed. Instead, the air felt different, charged with something unspoken. At precisely 9:30, an email went out to the entire department announcing a mandatory meeting. Arav's stomach tightened. Mandatory meetings often meant budget cuts or policy changes, and people like him were always the first to worry. As employees gathered in the main conference room, whispers filled the space. Mira entered moments later, composed but softer somehow, her usual sharpness replaced with a seriousness that demanded attention. Arav kept his eyes down, focusing on the scuffed floor, hoping to remain invisible. But when Mira began speaking, her gaze settled on him, steady and unmistakable. She spoke about responsibility, about unseen acts that keep an organization human, about how leadership isn't just titles but choices made in moments no one applauds. Then she did something no one expected. She acknowledged that someone in the room had prevented a serious incident the night before, not by policy, but by compassion. Arav felt his chest tighten as the room turned toward him. He wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. Recognition had never been his goal. But Mira didn't expose details or embarrass him. She simply said she would not forget what had been done for her, and that actions like those deserved more than silence. The meeting ended quickly after that, but the impact lingered like a bell still ringing after it struck. Over the next few weeks, subtle changes began to unfold. Arav noticed his maintenance requests were approved faster. His suggestions during safety audits were taken seriously. One afternoon, Mira stopped by his workstation in broad daylight, something she had never done before, and asked about his workload. She learned about Rayan, about the early mornings and the balancing act of parenthood. This time, she listened, not as a boss ticking boxes, but as a person genuinely absorbing another life's weight. For Arav, the biggest challenge had always been stability. His son was growing, asking more questions, dreaming bigger dreams, and Arav worried constantly about being enough. Every broken appliance, every unexpected expense chipped away at his confidence. The fear of losing his job haunted him, especially in a company driven by performance metrics rather than humanity. Saving Mira that night had not erased those fears, but it planted a seed he didn't realize was growing. One bright afternoon, sunlight streaming through office windows, Arav was called into Mira's office. His palms were damp, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Instead, he was offered something he never expected: a promotion to operations coordinator, a role that came with better hours, higher pay, and real growth. Mira explained that it wasn't charity. It was recognition of reliability, integrity, and leadership shown when it mattered most. She said she refused to forget, because forgetting would mean learning nothing. That day, Arav walked home under a clear blue sky, the city alive around him. He stopped by Rayan's favorite bakery, bought an extra treat, and listened as his son talked about school with animated joy. For the first time in years, Arav felt the tight knot in his chest loosen. The future no longer felt like a wall he was slowly being pushed against. It felt like a road. But the story didn't end there. Mira's life changed too. She sought help, openly acknowledged her struggle with alcohol, and began advocating for mental health support within the company. Rumors spread, but so did respect. Employees saw a leader willing to be vulnerable, and it transformed the culture more than any policy ever had, all because one man chose compassion over convenience. As months passed, Arav noticed how small acts rippled outward. He mentored a younger colleague, helped a neighbor fix a leaky pipe, volunteered at Rayan's school. Kindness, he realized, wasn't a single moment. It was a habit, built quietly, often unnoticed, but powerful enough to reshape lives. If this story is touching something inside you right now, if it reminds you of a moment when kindness changed your path or someone else's, please take a second to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Kindness Touch. Your engagement helps spread these stories to hearts that need them. And before the ending, we have one special request for you. Please comment below about a time when you chose kindness, even when it was difficult, or when someone's kindness changed your life. Your words might inspire someone reading them today. On a warm daytime afternoon, nearly a year after that rainy night, Arav attended Rayan's school event, watching his son perform on stage with a confidence that made his eyes sting. Mira sat a few rows back, applauding quietly, not as a boss, but as someone who understood how fragile and precious second chances were. Arav caught her eye briefly and nodded, a simple acknowledgement of a shared turning point. Life did not become perfect,